So within the category of relations, you have functions. So I'm not sure if I talked about this last time. So not all functions are basically relations, but not all relations are functions. So I'll give you an example. So if you have y equals to x, that's a function. Y equals to x squared, that's a function as well. But relations, if you have something like x squared, y squared equals to 10 squared, that's a relation. So I'll give you what they look like on the graphs. So there's something called a one-to-one function. So one-to-one function looks like this. It is either monotonically increasing, which means always increasing. So one-to-one function, okay, you guys can write this down, is always increasing. So you can see that this function here is always increasing function, right? So if you have like something like this one, that's strictly decreasing function, isn't it? So that's always decreasing function. So it's very simple. So I'm going to actually just get rid of this red line for simplicity. Now there is a way to test whether it's a one-to-one function or there's also many-to-one function. And I'll give you an example for that. It looks like this. That's a many-to-one. So I'll tell you the reason why. For one single value of x, there is only one single value of y. So let's say this is 5, and this is like, let's say 6. So for one value of x, there's only one value of y. That's one-to-one function. Now, if I have this point, and I have another point over here, maybe somewhere over here, you can see that they have the same value of y, right? So let's say this is 5, this is -5, and this is 6 here. So in this case, we have 5 and 6, and then -5 and 6. So for many values of x, you have one value of y. So this is many-to-one function. Okay, so this is a type of function. Another category is something like that. This one is one-to-many. And this is no longer a function, this is a relation. So this is not a function, but the reason is, for a single value of x, you get many values of y. You see that? So let's say this is -1, and you get like 3, -3. Okay, so one value of x to many value of y. So there's one-to-many relation, and there's finally, if you have some sort of a circle, could be an ellipse, that's a relation. This is many-to-many relation. So I'll give you, so I can show you that. So many values of x leads to many values of y. So there's a very easy way of checking all of this. There's something called a horizontal line test and vertical line test. So I'm going to use this green line as a test. So if I just do horizontal line test, that means I just draw many horizontal lines. We say that it passes the test if it only goes through one point. So when I draw many horizontal lines, it just goes through one point. If I do vertical line test, it also goes through just one point. You can see that, right? So one-to-one function is something that passes satisfies the horizontal line test as well as the vertical line test. Now, what about many-to-one function? Does that satisfy? Let's actually try this on the on Socrative. Okay, so I'm going to give short answer. So you can type your answer in any form you like. So I would like you to figure out whether this is a tick or cross or like cross tick. And this is, you can try one-to-many function and many-to-many function. Try this. Maybe you can type the answer. So this is 1, 2, 3. And if you think it's tick and tick, then go for circle, circle. Circle means tick. Cross means no. Okay? So you can either do that, comma, circle. Yeah. I think that's pretty clear, right? So you guys are all logged into Socrative yet? So if I do this one here, that's a circle, which is tick, and that's another tick, okay? So all you have to do is let me know, just give me a private message if you're like having trouble, okay? All you have to do is go onto the group chat, and there's a function where you can just send a message to me. So I'll give you an example. So on our group chat, you can see, you can change that thing to private, just send a message to me, okay? If you're having trouble, then I'll explain it to you. Okay, so let's have a look. I've got no answer yet from anyone. Okay, I've got one answer. So for one-to-one, it's tick, tick. Many-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. Okay. Yeah, so if it goes through 2 points, more than 1 point, then that's when it fails the test. Okay, so I've got only one response, so we're going to go through it together. Now, for many-to-one function, you can see that when you do horizontal line test, it fails, right? So that's why this is a fail here. We do vertical line test, it just goes through 1 point. So that's a tick there, okay? Put a circle there, okay? If you have a one-to-many function, if you do horizontal line test, it just goes through 1 point. You can see that, right? So that's a tick. If you do vertical line test, that fails, okay? 2 points. So if it goes through more than 1 point, then it fails. So that's cross there. So this one fails both of them, okay? Now we know that this one is a function, this one is a function, but this one is a relation, this one's a relation, right? Of course, every function is a relation. So these are also relations as well, but you can't say that these two are functions. So function is basically something that passes the vertical line test. So easiest way to test whether some graph is function is to test with a vertical line test. Okay, so if we just go back to the worksheet, so look, so you can see that this one is a function, but not one-to-one. This one is a one-to-one function. It passes both the horizontal line test and vertical line test. Is this one a function or not? Let me just run some survey there on Socrative. Let's go for true and false. So this is just a straight line thingy. Is that a function or not? Just want to see if that's a function. So, okay. So these are real responses. So one person said false, but it is actually true. So that is a function. The reason is, as you can see, if we just draw. So what is the definition of a function according to the vertical line test? You see, if I do vertical line test, it passes the vertical line test, doesn't it? It just goes through one point every time you drop down a vertical line. So it is a function. However, is this a function? So like, for example, this one is equal to y equals to 3, x equals to 3. Then you get a straight vertical line like this. If you have some line like this one is y equals to 3, where this point is 3. So this is a function. This line is a function, but this line is not a function. This one is a relation. Okay, so we'll see more about these two later. Now, moving on to, so these are definition of function and relation. Functions and relations, and one-to-one, many-to-one, etc. This one is a one-to-one. As you can see, one-to-one is always increasing function or always decreasing function. So you can see here, down over here, this is also always increasing function. This one is not increasing, not decreasing. This is not one-to-one. Okay. Of course, when you draw horizontal line test, it passes through more than one point. It passes through infinitely many points. So that is not classified as one. Okay. Now, where was that noise coming from? Okay, that's all good. Now, we talked about domain and range last time. We're going to talk about implied domain. So what is implied domain? The implied domain is sometimes also known as maximal domains. For example, if I say y equals to, so don't worry about this for now. If I say y equals to x squared, that is the most basic quadratic equation, having this parabolic shape, like so. So you see the domain for this one, if I don't tell you anything about the domain, so if I tell you actually, so domain is from 0 to 1, 0 to 1, and then that maps onto all real number, so that's codomain. Did we talk about codomain last time, guys? I think we did, right? Codomain is something that just contains the range. So you don't have to worry too much about this one, okay? It doesn't really give us any information. So that's the domain here. That's the domain. And in this case, so don't worry about that. We're talking about this one here. So that's the domain. So if I tell you the domain is 0 to 1, that you cannot draw all of this. You can only draw this from 0 to 1, right? And you would get rid of all of that and all of that. And the graph is just restricted to 0 to 1. And what you have to do is put in like black circle there. If the domain is not including 0, not including 1, and that maps onto real number, and the function is y equals to x squared, then what we do is we put a hollow circle there and draw the curve, and we put this empty circle there, indicating that 0 and 1 are not included. So this point and this point is not included. So that's how you draw this stuff and this stuff. So if domain is implied, if the domain is mentioned, then you follow that domain. But let's say I don't mention any of this domain. I just say y equals to x squared. And I don't give you any information about what the domain is. Then what we do is we take what's called implied domain or the maximal domain. All right? So that means you just take the largest possible domain possible. Of course, y equals x squared. What's the largest possible domain for x here? X can be infinity to infinity, right? So what we do is we take the domain to be from negative infinity to infinity. Rather than having this restricted domain, we take the largest possible domain. All right? Now, if I give you y equals to square root x, and I don't give you any domain, all right, then you have to take the largest possible domain, and that is x can be any number. See, inside of the square root, you cannot have negative number. The reason is, I'll show you. So if you have square root of -2, that gives you math error, right? So you cannot plug in negative number into square root. So the largest possible domain for this function is x is anything between infinity and 0. It can even equal to 0. So any positive number and 0 is fine. So that's the domain. So this is known as the implied domain or the maximal domain. On the other hand, if I tell you, all right, the domain is from x is 0 to 1, then that's the domain, all right? So if they don't tell you the domain, then you go for the largest possible domain, all right? So that's the meaning of implied domain. Let me run some survey here, guys. How'd you find, so I want you to go for true if you found that reasonably okay to understand. Go for false if you found it a bit too difficult. Just go for true if you found this one pretty straightforward. Okay, so majority of you go for true. That's good. Now we're going to go for a couple of questions. So one person found it difficult. That's fine. So everyone finds this one as a new topic. So it's a relative. The difficulty level that you're experiencing is relative. Now, we're going to have a look at these questions here. Now, one thing you need to know is that if you have square root of something, the domain can be found by letting the something, whatever that's inside here, must be a positive number. It cannot be a negative number. So that means whatever that's inside there should be this. That's how you find a domain, okay? Now, we're going to try B here first. So g of x is equal to, the function is equal to 5 minus x. All right, so we're trying to find the domain, the implied domain, which is the largest possible domain, all the x values that can be plugged in here. So definitely we can see that if x is equal to 6, 6 is not allowed because root of 5 minus 6, that's a negative value there, and you cannot plug in negative value inside of the root. So you get math error. Can you plug in 5 there? 5 minus 5. Yes, you can. That's 0. What about 5 minus 4? That's equal to 1. So that's fine. So it looks like when x is equal to 6, it wasn't allowed. 5, that was allowed. 4, that is allowed. 3, that's allowed. So it looks like it's all of that is allowed. When you plug in 7, it's 5 minus 7, which is also negative, so that's not allowed, right? So I want you to think about what the domain, the maximal domain is for that question there. So let's run Socrative there. So in your own words, I just want you to figure out, okay, just give it a go. So everyone is having difficulty with domain here, but you can just give it a go. Don't be afraid of getting wrong answer, because no one can say who got wrong answer. So just give your best shot, okay? So I give you time until 6:28. So what is the domain for this one? You can use any formula. You can do like x is an element of something like this. Could be square bracket. Or you can write your answer in this form. X is in between something. Or you can do x is an element of all real number, something like that as well, which is a set notation. So, okay, now I'm going to check the answers. Right, so we got 4 answers. That's very good. So negative infinity to 5. So these two are really good. So we're going to have a look at that. So I think these are the answers. Well done to these 2 people. So the answer is x must be less than or equal to 5. It can equal to 5, but it must be less than that. So it's from negative infinity. So all the other values here, they're fine. That's lower than 3. Up to 5 is okay, but below, it must be below 5. Okay, so that's representable with this one. Or you can write this one the same way as x is less than or equal to 5. So this is actually exactly the same as this one. Okay, because if x is less than 5, it includes everything that's less than 5. You don't really need that thing. All right. Now, I've got one question from someone. So I've got a question from Justin. You sent it to everyone. It can't equal to infinity. That's right. Yeah, sorry about that. That must be, I should get rid of that. Thank you very much, Justin. So it should be like that. Yeah, cannot equal to. So that's why you guys got this answer. Less than x is greater than infinity, not equal to, but it can equal to 5 there. So that's very good. All right. The easiest way, so if you found this one difficult, then the easiest way to approach this domain here is whatever that is inside of the root. See this one here. That must be greater than or equal to 0, right? Then you get 5 is greater than or equal to x. And that is how you find a domain, which is this one here. Okay. So that was okay. Now we can try C. C. So we got y equals to root of x minus 5 plus root of 8 minus x. Okay, so we know that whatever is inside of the root, it must be greater than 0, like this. So we have x minus 5 is greater or equal to 0, and 8 minus x is greater or equal to 0, which gives us x is greater or equal to 5. And here, if you move the x to the other side here, then you get 8 is greater than or equal to x, right? So we got two answers here. And it must satisfy both of this. And this is how you write the inequality. So according to this one here, this is 5 here. and x must be greater than 5. So anything that is above 5 and including 5. You notice how I didn't do hollow circle. That you do that when you have x is greater than 5. Okay. So x is greater equal to 5, so it can equal to 5 there, and anything above that. So that's how you represent this one. I see that for the second one, x is less than 8. So this is 8 here. And x is less than 8, so anything that's below 8. So we need to find the area that is overlapping between these two. So the answer is x is between 8 and 5. So that's the answer for this one. I'll show you why. Let's say we plug in 9. Can we plug in 9 there? It works for this one. 9 minus 5 is fine. But 8 minus 9 is not okay. You get root of -1. Okay? So that's not fine. But if you plug in 4, that's not okay. 4 minus 5 is negative. 8 minus 4 is fine. So, but if you plug in anything that is between 5 and 8, then it works for both of them. So you plug in maybe 6 there. That's positive. 8 minus 6 is positive. 6 minus 5 is positive as well. So it's working for both of them, okay? So, I want you guys to indicate on Socrative here, if you're wondering why square root of negative number is not allowed, you can say, if you're wondering, then go for true. If you know why root of negative is not allowed, then go for false. Okay. Okay, so it's 50-50. So I'll explain to you why. When you have x squared equals to 4, what is the value of x? X is equal to 2 or -2, right? So 2 squared is 4. -2 squared is also 4. This is -2 times negative is positive. So whatever you do, square of something is positive, isn't it? So if you want to find x, then you have to do plus and minus, and then square root of 4, and the positive and negative go on the outside of the root, not inside of the root, right? You see, the reason why square root of negative number is not permitted is because simply square of any number is positive. You see, that square is positive. You see how that's positive number? So if you want to find x, we do square root of 4, but that number is always, always, always positive. But having minus sign at the front is another story, because to find the answer, you first do square root of positive number, and then you one answer could be positive, another answer could be negative. All right, so I hope that clears things up. Yeah, I think we have done enough theory. We're going to move on to some questions. So your homework is going to be from, so I gave, so all the theories that I explained to you might be a little bit confusing, but these questions are pretty simple. The homework is from question 1 to question down here, but I'm going to, it's not going to be all of them. We're just going to select a few, okay? I'm going to try question 1 through maybe 5 together. So we're going to do lots and lots of them together. just a few of them as homework at this stage, because everyone's having difficulty learning new materials. Okay, so let's go through question 1. So this is a pretty simple one. F of x function is 4 plus 5x squared. So f of 2a is whatever the number there is, you just plug it into the x, right? So f of 2a equals to 4 plus 5, and there's an x squared. So you plug 2a into the x, and then you have to square that. And this is equal to 4 plus, I'll leave that to you. Okay, so work it out, and then go for A, B, C, D, E on Socrative. Okay, and I'll prepare question 2. Okay, so are we getting some answers? I've got one response. This one's just a warm-up question, but yeah, okay. So we're getting some different responses. All right, so there's a B, 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 D. All right, so one person got D. All right, so you made a mistake. Okay. Now, so I think the answer is B. So the reason is this one is equal to 4 plus 5 times by 2 square is 4, a square is a square. So this one is 4 plus 20 a square. So the answer is B. Now we're going to move on to question 2. You guys all have done equation of straight line, right? So this one here is the straight line, and that's the domain. So we read this one as function such that domain is from -3 to 5, including -3, excluding 5, maps onto all real number. That's the codomain. This is the rule for the equation. What is the range? So I'm going to draw this for you. If we're just given y equals to -x plus 7, that's the same thing as 7 minus x. And this is equation of straight line with an intercept at 7, and it's got negative gradient of 1, so it looks like that. So this is without any restriction, and we're taking the maximal implied domain. But in this case, we have restricted domain, -3 to 5. So -3 is here, and 5, I think if we plug in 5 there, you get -5 plus 7, which is 2. So if you, still in here, 5, this is 7 here, because at 7, when x equals to 7, -7 plus 7 is 0. So the x-intercept is 7. So 5 is over here. So we get this point and this point. So we just have to get rid of everything from there to there. Now, can someone tell me what I need to do to fix this graph? There's something that is missing. So what I drew there is this one, from -3 to 5. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with this? Do you think it's all correct? Justin? That's right. So Justin said this needs to be a hollow circle. So that needs to be an empty circle because it doesn't include 5. Okay, it includes -3. Now the question is, what is the range? Range is going to be from there to there. domain is from here to here, right? So on Socrative, you can try. You can choose A, B, C, D. So let's go for MCQ again. Can make it a little bit bigger for you, like this. Okay. Oh, sorry, I need to zoom out because you can see all these choices then. Okay, so let's see. So we've got one student has answered so far. And that student said the answer is, two students have answered. They both said the answer is B. Okay. I think the answer is A. Now take a look at this. So we've got this situation. We've got that situation. This is -3, 5. So the domain is X is an element of -3, including -3 and 5, right? But the thing is that when you plug in -3 there, 7 minus -3 is 10. So this is 10. And this value here, plug in 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. So this is 2 here. So it doesn't include 2. You can see that, right? But it includes 10. So the answer is A. So even though our domain is -3 to 5, inclusive, exclusive, we get this, 2, 10. So that gives you that, and that gives you that. Can you see that? Yeah. So I think the answer is A. So well done to this person here who answered A. That's very good. I hope everything makes sense there. Now, we're going to move on to the next question. Okay, so this one here is what y equals to x squared plus 6. So let me show you what it looks like. So this is, you know what y equals to x squared looks like, right? So that's just a parabola like this. Can anyone tell me what this one looks like? Valerie? Maybe Valerie knows? Are you there?
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
Literally no idea. Sorry.
Okay. Nepo? So let me just give you some clue. This one is x squared plus 6. So it's this curve either moving up by 6, so you get this one, or moving to the right, or moving to the left by 6, or moving down by 6. Okay? So the answer is, like you guessed, it's moving up by 6. So the answer is this one here. So that's the shape of this function here. Now the domain is -1 to 6. So let me draw this again. So I think it's going to go like that and like this. This one is -1. This one is 6. We don't draw this part. We only draw from here to here. And that's including that number there. And this one is excluding that number there. Does that make sense to you? So of course it keeps on going up like that. But we are only restricting the domain to just here to here. Now, we need to figure out the range, okay? So I'll give you some time for that. So MCQ. So obviously the domain is from there to there. From there to there. That's including, excluding. That's the domain. Range is the allowed y values, isn't it? Okay, so I've got one answer from one person and two answers. They're saying the answer is A or D. Yeah, one more person answered D. Okay, so let's give it a go together. So of course, if we plug in, so in the previous question, we plugged in these values, the extreme values, -3 there, -5 there, to find the range. But if we do that here, plug in -1, then you get 7. If you plug in 6 there, you get 36 plus 6, which is 42. But your range is not there to there, right? So that would give you, of course, 7 to 42, which is D. So a lot of you went for D, but it actually starts from there, doesn't it? Doesn't start from there, start from there. So the answer is, this value is 6, isn't it? So the answer is 6 to 42, which is E. So actually no one went for E. Yeah, so does everything make sense? There to there, not from there to there, okay? But yeah, if you still got D there, that means that you know what's going on, and at least you know the procedure of working it out. Now we're gonna do 4. And I'll draw the graph for you. So this one is equation of circle, and that's a relation, isn't it? It's not a function anymore. And this one, so equation of circle is like this: x minus h square, y minus k square equals to r square. So what that means is it's a circle with center of h and k. So this is a hk, and it's got radius of r. So this one here has center at +6. So there's negative sign by default. You have 6, and this is y minus 0. So the center is 6, 0. And because it's 25, this one is same as 5 square. So the radius is 5. So radius is 5, so it reaches there, 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 and there. So you get a circle like this. So you don't need to know exactly how I get this equation. We're just practicing domain and range. So don't worry too much if you found this one pretty difficult to plot. We're going to go through functions and relations again. Right now, we're just focusing on domain and range. So the domain is from there to there. Range is from there to there. Understand? So what is the range? I want you to work out the answer. Pretty simple one. Go for MCQ here. I want you to think about the domain as well, but you don't have to answer that. Just figure out the answer, please. What is the range? Range is from there to there. Okay. Okay, so you're going for this one here. That's correct. So because the radius is 5, this should be -5, and that should be +5. So that's the answer. Domain is a lot more difficult, but domain is from 1, because its distance from 1 to 6 is 5, right? And this must be 11. So domain must be 1 to 11. Okay. This union symbol there means it's a combination of that and that. So this symbol here means or. So that, or we read this one as union, or we pronounce it as or. Okay, so we'll talk more about that next time. So number 5 is done. Number 6, number 4 is done. Number 5 now. Okay, so what is the maximal domain of this function? So whatever is inside must be greater or equal to 0. So using that, you can figure out the answer, okay? So off you go. So MCQ. So write down 3x minus 11. I want you to solve this one. It's the same thing as solving this one. If you know how to solve this one, you can solve this one as well. Once you solve this, then you'll be able to figure out the answer. So nobody has answered yet, so take your time. Okay, C and E. Okay, so all right. I think E is correct answer. Let's have a look. So you move this one to this side. So 3x is greater or equal to 11, and then x is greater or equal to 11 on 3. So that means as long as x is greater or equal to 11 on 3, then this function, you never get the case where you get negative sign here. So this one is actually the same as this one here, because if you flip it, you get 11 on 3 is less than equal to x. Of course, x can be less than infinity. X is always less than infinity. So that thing is the same as this one, which is the same as this one here. That's including 11 on 3 and not including infinity. Yeah, so well done to those two people who got A. That's very good. Now we're going to move on to number 6. Number 6. Let's try this. So I got, that's the domain. This is the function. What is the range? Okay. So we have 4 plus 2 root 9 plus x. Well, of course, if you know what this one looks like, then it's pretty helpful. But let's just plug in -5 in here. So here's a function. Plug in -5 and plug in 0. So when x is equal to -5, then you get 4 plus 2 root 9 minus 5, which is 4. So that's equal to 2 times 2, which is 4. So that gives you 8. If you plug in 0, that's a 4 plus 2 root 9, 9 plus 0, right? So that's 3 times 2, which is 6, so we get 10. Well, we know that obviously plugging in these x values does not necessarily guarantee the y values, the range. But we'll talk about this next time. The square root function is a monotonically increasing, it's always increasing function or always decreasing function. So it's a one-to-one. So think about this. If it's always increasing function, and you have the x value, y value, you plug that in, then you get the range straight away, right? So from there to there is the range. If it is not one-to-one function, so say you got something like that, and this is the domain from there to there, you plug that in, then you get this one, and you plug that in, you plug this point in, then you get this one. So although that's the domain, when you plug these values, you get this one and this one, which does not give you the range, right? So this is because this is not one-to-one function. But as for one-to-one function, which is always increasing or always decreasing function, when you plug in the two end values of the domain, then you get the two end values of the range. So it's a very simple one, actually, if you understand this idea. It's a pretty difficult concept to understand, but yeah, the answer is 8 to 10. Okay, so 8 to 10 here. Of course, the -5 is not included. So that's why it's 8 is not included. But 0 is included. Well, when you plug in 0, you get 10, so 10 is included. So the answer is A there. Okay. Now we're going to move on to question 7. Question 7. Yeah, that's just about figuring out the range. Yeah, we'll go through that now. So I'm going to give you something maybe easier than this worksheet. Maybe this worksheet is something that we have to go through together. I'll just send you some easier homework than this one. Now, number 7. So this one is also, before we go through this, maybe it's necessary to go through some other concepts. So if you have function of x, it's pretty simple stuff. Some function, if you have a function of x plus a, this will shift the graph upward by a. If you have function f of x minus a, then it'll shift the curve down by a. If you have function of x plus a, then it'll shift the graph to the left by a. If you have a function that is x minus a, then this will shift the graph to the right by a. So it's positive then left, negative then right, okay? Now, we got the original function as y equals to x squared. Now, I want you to think about this one. Y equals to this one versus y equals to x squared minus 2. So there are huge differences between these two. So this one is nothing more than plugging in. You see how if this is a function of x, then this one is simply replacing the x by x minus 2, isn't it? So this is the same thing as f of x minus 2 inside there. Whereas this one is you have this is the whole function. So that's the function minus 2. So minus 2 on the outside, this is minus 2 on the inside. So, of course, the graph of this one is this, right? That's the original shape of the parabola. And what's going to happen is for this one, it is going to be that whole thing shifting to the right by 2, like that, okay? It's like this, and that's 2 there. And we can, of course, figure out the y-intercept there by plugging x equals to 0, because y-intercept is where x equals to 0, so plug in 0 there. Negative 2 squared is 4, so you get 4 like that. This one, on the other hand, is going down by 2. So it'll be, was like that, and it'll go down like this, okay? So it'll be like this, and that's negative 2. If we look at this function, now it's really, really simple. this one is going to the right by 2. See, that's a -2 on the inside of the square. And then, of course, they wrote it as just a brand new function f of x. But if we write the f of x as x squared, then f of x minus 2 is plug in this whole thing into x, then you get x minus 2 squared. And then f of x minus 2 plus 5, then you get plus 5 here. So you get this whole bracket plus 5. That means this parabola, this parabola was like this. It's moving to the right by 2 and then moving up by 5. So that's where it's going to be. So that's 2 and that's 5. And we're taking the maximal domain. We're taking the as much x as possible. So that's infinity to infinity. Now, obviously, what's the range? If the graph is like that, what is the range? You can go for it on Socrative. Okay. So go for A or B or C or D. So give you some clue. Range is starting from there. You see, it's from there, and it shoots upward to infinity. So there is no limit. It just goes on forever. So that's infinity, and starts from 5. Okay. So the answer is, well done, guys. To those who chose D, the answer is D here. It's from 5 to infinity, including 5. Okay. Well, question 8 is pretty simple, so I'm probably going to give that as homework. You just need to plug in -1 into here. This is also pretty easy, so you can try 9 as well as homework. So although many questions in this worksheet are difficult, some of them are really, really easy. Okay, so you just need to plug in a plus b in here. That's going to be homework. This one is about what is the maximal domain. So this is actually pretty hard. So you don't have to do that. And so, yeah, you guys will receive invitation link to this course here. And after, I'm going to create lesson 2 here. So lesson 2, this was about domain and range 2. And I'm going to add video there. I'm going to write homework. So you'll find some homework, very simple homework questions there. So I don't want to give you too much pressure, because I know that you guys having busy schedule in year 10. You guys have assignments and school homework as well. So I don't want to make it like too difficult and add too much workload onto your already really large amount of workload. So yeah, we'll just make it really easy. And also, if you guys want to have some one-on-one session as well for your school stuff, apart from this advanced materials that we're covering, that's also available. If you want that, just let me know. Just send me a text message, okay? So we'll call it a day here, and I'll see you guys next week for maths. And those of you who are trying chemistry tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Bye.